Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Overcoming Graduation with Brian Drury. Today my guest is Matt Marr, and when I tell you guys that this is one of the funniest interviews that I've ever recorded, I am not even close to exaggerating. I was laughing so hard at times that I needed to pull myself away from the mic so you guys would actually be able to hear Matt, not just me laughing like crazy. So Matt, in his bio, describes himself as the gay White Oprah. He says people have called him that, but he's not really sure whether or not they have. And he is a commercial TV actor, a therapist, coach, stand-up comedian, podcaster, host, and so much more. So in today's interview, Matt's going to discuss his challenges that he faced growing up in Oklahoma during the 80s and what it was like to be a gay boy in a society that wasn't accepting of who he was. He talks about how he was able to overcome those challenges and become who he is today. So after he left Oklahoma, he went to study opera at the University of North Texas, which has one of the most prestigious music programs in the entire country, and later got a master's degree in clinical psychology. You'll also explain why he made that switch. So now that he is doing all these different things between being the therapist, the coach, the stand-up comedian, the podcaster, and so much more, he has been featured on such commercials with such brands as LasVegas.com, Hotels.com, Tide, and Target. He's gotten to sing on stage with Shania Twain and Justin Timberlake, and he also has created his own camp called Camp Brave Trails, which is a leadership camp for LGBT children to come and learn about themselves and to embrace their unique gifts and share them with the world. So Matt is just a fascinating guy. He's super genuine. He's got the southern drawl and calls everybody sugar, and you'll hear him call me sugar about 30 times in the interview. So he is going to talk about not just the challenges that he faced and also his career as a commercial actor. He's going to talk about how he was able to find himself and create a life that helps others express the truth within them. He's going to talk about shadow careers and what they are and the shadow careers that he has had in his life, why he moved to LA to pursue acting and went on a total of 2 interviews in 4 years, why gay and lesbian individuals deal better with stress and grief, how to find community when you feel alone and isolated, and his work as a narrative therapist and how to reframe your life story. Now, also, I'll be sharing the video in the show notes from his commercial reel where he got to meet Justin Timberlake and amongst many other amazing commercials that he has. But really, guys, this episode and this interview was so much fun. Matt actually asked me to be on his show, so I'll be sharing that with you soon once we do that. And definitely go check out DearMattyShow.com, BraveTrails.org, and you can find Matt on The Matt Marr on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Matt Marr on YouTube, and that's Marr. So he really is doing some very unique things, touching people's lives in a unique way. When I got to meet him in person, the way he talks and tells his story and the way he helps people reframe their stories through narrative therapy is something I've never seen before and I think is absolutely fascinating. So guys, I know it's been a while since we've had an interview, but now we have a doozy and a beautiful one for you today. So without any further ado, let me introduce you all to Matt Marr. Hey guys, today is a hugely exciting day for the Overcoming Graduation podcast because this is the first episode ever featuring a sponsor on the show. So today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/OCG. That's audibletrial.com/OCG. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. I happen to have some excellent recommendations, especially if you were like me when I was younger and don't like reading. Audible is a great way to get started, and I highly recommend Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss or the book Born to Run on Audible. Check them out. I'm sure you'll love them. Matt, congratulations for being the first ginger interviewed on the show by another ginger.
What? We are bringing it. Look at that.
It is about to get real. Now, guys, I don't normally read bios, but I had to read the first line of Matt's bio because I laughed immediately, and after getting to meet him at an event recently, I was like, you know what? I can see this. So he literally starts with, I've been called the gay White Oprah. Now, I don't really know about that, but I do love giving a place for people to share their story in hopes of changing viewers' lives for the better. I'm going to let Oprah do her, and I'll do me. And Matt, even just from knowing you a very short while, I know you do you. So, like I said, we start this off generally around college graduation. So I'd like to start by talking about what were your thoughts and feelings about, stepping out into the quote-unquote real world when you were on the verge of graduation?
Terrified. I was terrified. And first of all, to Brian, thank you so much for having me on the show. I love your so to meet you, I'm becoming a fan of the show. My nephew just graduated high school, and I sent him a text picture of it. I'm like, you should listen to the show. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
But, so thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
And, so yeah, I was terrified when I first got out of my undergraduate. I went to the University of North Texas. Go Eagles. It's in just north of Dallas. It's actually, I don't know when this show's going to air, but it kind of blew up on social media this week, actually. There was a picture of a coffee mug of a college that failed, and the coffee mug was a white mug with green letters that said UNT, but then the coffee handle looked like a C. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen that. It's been everywhere. Anyway, that's my school. Yeah, that happened. But no, I had a different, I want to say it's a different story, but honestly, it's probably very similar in that. So growing up in a small Oklahoma town, and especially like being a little kind of pretty feminine Wonder Woman obsessed gay kid in the middle of sports Oklahoma. I loved Wonder Woman. I still do. And, but I was always a singer, and my cousin got me into singing. I would sing at church, and so that's kind of what I was always good at. But, and I learned this later in life, but I think sometimes what is easy for you or what you're maybe good at is not necessarily what you should be doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that was the case for me in the fact that I liked performing and stuff like that, but I just kind of went through the motions, and it got me a scholarship to college. So the school that I went to, North Texas, was the largest music school in the nation. It actually has a college of music. So it's very competitive. It's, it's all where people talk about like college is a relaxing experience for them. I had fun in college. I loved it. I made great friends. But it was like, I feel like somebody who's doing pre-med or engineering or something. Wow. I was always, all the time, studying music. Or practicing music in ensemble and choir. Like my days were 12-hour days of college. Mm-hmm. And with the kind of one bad thing is that you were just kind of going through the motions. I was that perfect student that always wanted to be teacher's pet and have straight A's and all that kind of stuff. I just wanted to get everything done right.
Right.
But then it was about, I did the 5-year undergrad plan because you had to get a lot of credits for a music degree because you're going to make so much money from it. Hello. But anyway, it was about a semester before I graduated, and I was walking by, and like I said, my school, the guy, I forget his name, like David Letterman, bald-headed guy, his band guy, he's in North Texas. Roy Orbison, the band The Eagles, mm-hmm. Harry Connick Jr., Nora Jones was in my music theory class. So this is the type of music school that I went to. Wow. Like crazy. It's got an amazing jazz program, so really competitive. And like all my friends now are singing with like Domingo and on Broadway. It's crazy. Wow. Well, so that was just really like, it kind of beat my ego a little bit because I wasn't one of the best ones at all. Right. But it was about a semester before I graduated. I was walking through the hallway and I heard two guys talking about music, and they were talking about some new composer, new artist, blah, and they were so passionate about it. And it kind of stopped, and I went, oh, we can cuss, right? Yeah. I forgot. I remember now. And I was like, oh, fuck. And I realized I don't feel that way about music the way they do.
Wow.
And I realized I probably really wouldn't have gotten a degree in this. But I was, 4.5 years in a 5-year degree. So I was like, well, all right, I'm just going to kind of go through the motions and finish this out and then figure it out. And then another thing too, North Texas just started doing kind of entrepreneurial music. I think they call it music entrepreneurship. Yep. But literally they just started this year. So it just shows you how behind art schools that are teaching artists Nobody teaches you as an artist, as an actor or a comedian, a singer. No one teaches you the business of entertainment.
Yes.
No one teaches you about marketing. No one teaches you anything about that. It's all about just the technique and being a good craftsman for the art and working, making it, perfect or whatever it needs to be. So that was definitely
that's something that my dad talks about frequently, because he's worked in sales for 30 years, but is also a musician. And when he goes out into the music world, he talks about you have these incredibly talented musicians, but they don't know how to promote themselves, how to put themselves out there, how to build a business agreement. And some of the basic skills in any business arrangement, you get these incredibly gifted people who should be out sharing their gift with the world, but because they didn't learn those kind of like foundational skills on how to make this a living, that's where you see so many starving artists and people that think that, oh, I'll never make money doing this, I'll never make a career or a living doing this. So I know it's got to be so challenging, but like you said, if many of these musicians just get that base and that foundation, it can allow them to skyrocket.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that goes with anything, but it really, for sure. And it was something that I was just too scared of. So, I mean, I finished graduation. And I thought, well, all of my other friends were going to graduate school in music, getting another master's, getting another performance degree as a master's. Mm-hmm. And so I started to do that as well at Oklahoma City University. And I studied with like a very famous teacher, like for anybody listening that is into like musical theater or anything, she's Kristen Chenoweth's teacher, and she's super famous, won Tonys and stuff. And so, again, everything on paper was perfect, was good. And then I started that in 2 weeks, and then I went to the financial aid office, and they said, you're going to owe $60,000. And I thought, I don't want to owe $60,000 for a performance degree. If I was going to be a doctor or an attorney from this, sure. And so I called my mom and I was like, I don't think I'm cut up for this, Mom. And it was just one of those, thank God I listened to my gut instead of listening to what I should be doing. Yep. And that's like the Carl Rogers, a very famous therapist, says that you're shitting on yourself. You're shitting on what you should be doing. Yeah, he's great. Carl Rogers is great. And so it really... So then I just kind of, I think honestly one of the best things that happened to me is that I'd moved to Oklahoma City, and this is from being in Dallas, which was a bigger city, back to Oklahoma City. My mom lived there at the time. It was an hour from my hometown. And I kind of thought, I'll be able to kind of go back home again, because you kind of think you'll be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't fun. And I just kind of... honestly, it was just pretty lonely for a year in Oklahoma City. I didn't really have a lot of friends there, and a lot of my young friends that were in Oklahoma, because they stayed in Oklahoma, they had already at this time I was 22, 23 years old. They were already married, possibly having kids, because that's just what you do there. Right. Mm-hmm. But it was in retrospect, it was really good, and then I just kind of was just sad, just instead of working towards something or feel like, especially in being in the academia world, mm-hmm. I just kind of sat with myself and kind of figured out what I wanted to do. And then I was going to go to Chicago to start pursuing musical theater with a friend. Mm-hmm. And then, so I was 23, and it was a friend from undergrad. We were going to do that. And then I'm sorry, #tangent. And you can interrupt me anytime, but I'm a very big Shania Twain fan. Mm-hmm. And when I was in my undergrad, my father surprised me with tickets to go see Shania Twain, mm-hmm. and I got to go up on stage with Shania Twain, because I had a sign that said "I heart you," and I cut a hole in the heart and stuck it around my head. And she said, "Do you want to come up?" And we were on the 4th row. So she asked me to come on stage, and then she said, "Do you want to sing a song with me?" And I said, "Sure." So I got to sing a song with Shania Twain. Wow. And it was awesome. not the best singer in the world, but come on, I'm from Oklahoma with a music degree, so I can sing a fucking country song, sugar. Like, I was ready. I was ready for this. And anyway, she was like, to hear the crowd like all blow up and get excited, and see my dad being like, well, you know, my dad was like, well, shit, son, I didn't know you could do like that. You're like on the Grammys. Like, well, you know. But anyway, but I told that story to like a friend of a friend. Anyway, long story short, it got me right before I went to Chicago, 2 weeks before I was supposed to move. I was chosen as country music television, a contest. I was Shania's #1 fan, and they flew me to Canada, and they had a cameraman and a sound person, and then me, and they just had me go around to places that Shania Twain grew up and just talk to them about what they knew about Shania and all this kind of stuff. And it was hosting. And it was hosting and interviewing people and getting to know them. And it honestly it harkened back to, I was obsessed with talk shows as a little kid. Like, I used to tape Oprah when I was at school, because most boys in Oklahoma do that, you know.
Right, yeah, that's pretty standard.
Yeah, middle school was fun, you guys. It was really fun. And and that's really, it really harkened to me. What I really wanted to do was be a host. I wanted to have a talk show more than anything, because I loved people's stories, and that moved me. And you know, there's a book called The Artist's Way, where the author, it's a great workbook for anybody, but especially for artists who feel kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. And in it, it's a 12-week workbook, and she talks about how we pick shadow careers that aren't necessarily what we want to do, but we feel like it's the safe career.
Right.
And I'm sure, but I think anybody who's even not, I mean, I think we're all artists, but I think anybody can relate to it. But, you know, going into singing was a shadow career for me. It's not really what I wanted to do. I really wanted to be a host. And even, you know, in some points, acting was, in a way, a shadow career.
You know what's interesting, Matt, especially going back to when you were on the verge or starting this master's degree, and realizing this isn't right for me. What I think is interesting, and I think was very brave of you, was to acknowledge that that wasn't the right step for you, that wasn't the right thing, and to walk away. What I think so many people do is they ignore that intuition or that voice inside, their heart telling them this isn't it, and they just kind of grind along and push, because like you said earlier, that's what they think they're supposed to do. And they get through what they're supposed to do and don't feel any happier or any more fulfilled, because what they're working on and how they're spending more and more of their time is not aligned with who they really are. So you stepping away and taking that time to say, you know what is it I need? And taking that year and being down, it's like, that's one of the most important things I've learned about life, especially recently, is that there are going to be ups and downs, and they're necessary. It's not about trying to resist it and be happy all the time. It's be down, feel it, allow that to work through you, and then come out the other side and say, okay, what's this thing for me? And like you said, there was plans, there were things set, and all of a sudden the Shania Twain opportunity comes up. You jumped on it, and it introduced you to a new love. So for all the listeners, don't be afraid to say yes to opportunities, especially the ones that give you that fire inside, that the moment you hear it, you go, oh my God, is this too good to be true? There's times where you have to be careful, but there's also times where you need to step out and be honest with yourself and know what it is you really want to do. So, all right, so you're doing this Shania Twain show, you're being a host, you've recognized that this is something you want to do. What came next after that?
So for then, I did, I literally 2 weeks before I moved to Chicago, I changed my mind, and I had a friend moving to LA, and I moved to Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And again, and then for me, I kind of came through a different process. I moved to LA, and I knew I wanted to start pursuing acting, but again, there was nothing out here. There was I knew one person. She wasn't an wasn't an actor and didn't want to be an actor. And I mean, I knew nothing. I knew she had a friend who took headshots, and that's about it. But I moved out here in 2003, mm-hmm. and in that time, from 2003 before I started my master's, which was in 2007. Mm-hmm. I went on 2 auditions, and that's it. And I honestly was I had no idea. I think I was just A, so scared, and B, a lot of it too for me is that, it's a blessing and it's a curse when you're gay or lesbian, because well, it seems like I should reframe that. It seems like a curse or a terrible thing when you're younger, but it's such a blessing. Because it was such a problem for me in my life, and I stressed about it. But in essence, and I thought it was what would destroy me in life, and it's actually what saved me.
Wow.
Because I had to, and it's true, studies show that like gay and lesbian people actually deal with stress better. They deal with death better because that act of coming out. And that was great. I think that's really what I did is I came to California and I just like started dating guys for the first time. And like, like I didn't get to do the stuff that you got to do in high school. I wasn't a cute ginger in high school, Brian, who was just, having some fun with the ladies and all that kind of stuff, and on the sports team. I don't know your life. But for me,
that's accurate though. You're spot on there.
So you like got to go like get a little tipsy and make out with a girl. I did none of that, so I didn't get any of it. So you kind of like. So basically, this is a nice way of saying I just became a whore. And,
but Matt, I may have been trying to do those things a lot in high school, but high school Brian was pretty lost when it came to the girls. It was really wanted to, I played sports, I did all that, but especially early in high school, it was a very scrawny, pimple-covered face, a lot of insecurity, and boy, I remember when I got to like senior year and I felt like, oh, now I figure girls out. I get it. And my parents would try and give me advice. I'd be like, I got this. And then as I grew up, I'm like, oh, yeah, they know what they're talking about. They were married 36 years. So, okay, yeah. So yeah.
I should have listened.
You can do the jock movie stereotype. That was not my life. It was a much more like, okay. Oh my God. Do I call her? Oh my God.
Which is still also normal too. And so I really just kind of did that. But the beauty of it though is that when you have to figure out yourself.
Right.
And often, a lot of times, gay people, we have to do that earlier than straight people do. And that's, I think, a lot of reasons why you don't see a lot of gay men who have midlife crisis at 45 years old, but you see a lot of straight men who do, because one of my friends told me, who's a straight person, he said, you're lucky because he was 45, kind of going through a midlife crisis. And he was saying, life just happened for me, and I never had to stop and think about who I really was and what I really want. And that's what I love about your show too, especially about after graduation and in this period, because for me it was, I just needed some guidance, like a show like this, or someone to just affirm that those dreams that I had were actually doable. But it was just the thought of them and trying to do them was so overwhelming and so scary, and mainly I felt so alone in doing it.
Yes.
That's really, I just kind of floated in California and I had fun and I made friends and I built a lot of social structure, but it honestly was really, I did a lot of improv and stuff and I liked it okay. And then I started volunteering for a suicide helpline. It's called the Trevor Project. And
Matt, but before we go there, because I know I'm going to have some questions there, but
Sugar, you interrupt. It's fine. Go there.
For all the listeners, in his bio, he says he calls everyone Sugar, and
I'm sorry,
and I love it. I saw it live in person. It's happening now, so it's great. It's you being human, and that's what this show is all about. So, but when you said people don't have a reason to really look inside themselves and say, who am I and what am I here to do and who am I as a person and how do I want to express myself in the world and what's the most genuine expression of me? For everyone listening, you have the opportunity and the choice to do that at any moment. The reason that most people go through life and just default into this other path is they don't stop and slow down. We get so distracted with being busy and getting the next job and getting the raise. Honestly, what I've realized for myself is that busyness is a form of procrastination to keep me from having the difficult conversations with myself and really going inside and saying, is this right? Because when you slow down and take those moments to look inside of yourself and be honest with you, some people never do this. Most people will do it only at these midlife crisis moments like Matt is talking about. But especially if you're a young adult and you're starting your life, you have so much more ability to change and take a different route, blaze your own trail. Even if you're 50, 60, 70 listening to this show, that opportunity still exists. But for the young adults, you're just getting started. don't decide that your life has to be some way because other people have told you or that's all you've seen. If you want to live a different reality, start introducing yourself to people who have done that, like Matt, and hear their stories, because that gives you fuel and fire to say that whatever is happening in your heart could be possible for you. So I love that point, Matt. I had to hit on that. And now you start, yeah, go ahead.
Well, and I would take that further and say, for someone who keeps thinking, for your listeners, I don't know your life. I don't know if you believe in God, Judy Garland, Buddha, whatever, the universe. But I do think if you're listening to this show and you're that busy person, or you've been avoiding what you want, what you even want to just, it's not, you don't even have to chase your dream. This is the universe having a moment with you of just saying, just think about it. Just dream about the dream. Just take a moment, because you're so right. I love that. I've never thought about that, but it's very true, where busyness is just can be a form of procrastination. And it really is. It's in that pause of life where we hear what the universe wants us to do and what we feel called to do, because we don't have the noise chattering in our head.
Right. And one of the biggest things for me is, and part of the reason this is also prevalent in my mind, is because I had something that forced me to really question life. Like, I did it after college a little bit, but my mom got sick and passed away from pancreatic cancer 2 years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you, man. It was actually the 2-year anniversary just this Monday, and I had a total meltdown, breakdown, but something I've learned is, that's a Southern thing. Oh, bless your hearts. But
it is. Sorry, yeah.
So one of the things I've learned is that that's okay, and sometimes you need that. And when you resist the emotions, you do a lot more damage than if you just allow yourself to feel them, let them come through, and then move forward. That was something I learned from Sean Stevenson. But what you were saying about how, like, having that moment and taking that time with the universe, most people, and here's what I experienced in my life, was I was so terrified to slow down, because I thought if I stopped and thought about all of the painful emotions, because they were stronger than anything I'd felt in my life, that it would overwhelm me, and that I wouldn't be able, I would be destroyed by it. What I found through my own personal work, through some great coaches and mentors and amazing friends and family, when I go into the shit, when I go into the fear, whatever those emotions are, when I allow myself to feel and be human, all of a sudden there's freedom there. And when you let those negative emotions come through, they can be replaced with the positives. You can remember the joy of mom's smile. You can remember even the bright moments in some of the darkest times. So that slowing down and that time is so critical, not just for getting clarity on where you want to go in your life. Because if you don't slow down, like Matt said, the whole chasing your dreams concept, you could just chase anything. It's the whole quote, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. Like Matt said, you need to slow down and listen to the voice inside of you, stop all the other chatter to say, you know what, here's that road I want. And that road doesn't exist yet, but I'm going to build it. So, awesome, Matt. Fantastic. So, all right, now let's keep rolling, because this story is already getting more twists and turns, and I love it. So, you started volunteering with a suicide helpline, and what spurred you?
Because I thought that would be fun.
Really? Okay, yeah. You know, that's what most people do for a fun Saturday. But so
it's called. Go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say. So it was, and I know you, so I'm sure it was coming from a place of wanting to help and connect with people. But yeah, tell us about what it's called and what really drove you to be there.
Well, it was two things, actually. It was I wanted to help people, but also I didn't have a lot of other, like, gay guy friends. And I was like, I really want to make friends and, like, possibly date somebody. And, like, this was before Grindr or anything like that. Like, so, like, you had to go to bars and meet people. And I'm okay. I'm not the elephant man or anything. I don't have abs or anything. I'm not the fittest guy. I'm Southern. I love butter. But, like, we live in West Hollywood. I mean, even the dogs have abs.
Yeah, they're all jacked.
Crazy. Yeah, and I'm just like, I felt like Jabba the Hutt. Like it just, talk about a shame spiral. So I thought, but I also too, one reason, and I will say this, I'll just go back a little bit. When I was in my undergrad, I was with a voice teacher, and I felt like he wasn't the right voice teacher for me. And I kind of kept, but he was the chair of the voice department, so he was the one that, like, he had more credibility,
Right.
he was tenured, and I thought, wow, and I just kept thinking, well, this looks perfect that I'm with him, because he's the best,
Right, the
and all that kind of
prestige of
crap.
being with
And
him,
he ended
yeah.
up being the total wrong voice teacher for me, and I developed vocal problems from it.
Wow.
So not only was I leaving undergrad not knowing to do, but also literally my voice literally and figuratively was broken. And so it was like I had to rebuild this. And so that's when I started to do my master's. I think the reason I listened to that voice to stop is that I didn't listen to that voice before, and it burned me really badly.
Right.
And so I hope that anybody listening to this, when that voice starts, a lot of times it'll start just as a whisper or maybe even a poke on the shoulder, and eventually it just gets louder and louder and louder. I encourage you to listen to your voice earlier on, because, I mean, I'm glad that happened to me, because I kind of had to refigure out what I wanted to do, but it was very difficult. So I just want to say that. And then, so anyway, so doing the volunteering with I was interested in being a therapist, and I was thinking about it because, again, people were already like, you're like a gay White Oprah, and you give great advice, and da-da-da. And so I was thinking about it, and then I thought, well, I was still feeling burned with school before, going in to do a degree I didn't really want to do, and I thought, this is kind of like counseling, so I'll volunteer for this, and if I like it, then I'll look into school.
Right.
And so I did it, and I made a bunch of good friends. I still have great friends from it, which was awesome. But I actually really enjoyed it, and I loved how I felt doing it, and I was really great at it. And what led me to get my master's in counseling. And so, however, though, the thing is, I've never had, so when I was doing my master's, I never had therapy or anything like that in my life. And I do say that for somebody, like, because whether it's a life coach, a therapist, a mentor, if you are going through those painful moments and the pain is too scary, just know you don't have to deal with the pain of that alone.
Yes.
Whether it's, like for someone like yourself, if you don't want to do therapy, but there's also cancer survivor groups, or for somebody else out there dealing with whatever, there is a group, a support system that you can find online. Even if it's not in your community, you could still get support online. So I definitely want to say that to people. If it's too much to deal with by yourself, get support.
And
Remember
Matt, to build on that, for all the listeners, guys, you are not alone. One of the scariest feelings in the world, and I think when we feel the most isolated, is when we feel like no one understands, that no one can relate to the pain that we're experiencing, and then we shut out the world, and that just puts us into a downward spiral and gets us even more distant from the people that really want to help us and that are out there to connect with us. I remember when I was younger, I didn't have a stigma around therapy for other people. I said, hey, it's great, go for it. But I thought somehow that I was above it, to be honest.
So did I.
I thought, oh, yeah, well, like, I have exercise and I have good friends. Like, I can deal with it. Like, I've always been able to deal with my emotions. Then my mom gets cancer, and, God throws me a hell of a curveball and says, Brian, we're going to a whole nother level. And so I went to therapy and found it to be immensely helpful. After my mom passed away, I hired a coach to help me, a life coach to help me in all aspects. And he helped me lose weight, reestablish my mindsets, learn to have a healthy attitude towards working forward. And guys, like Matt said, there's so many resources out there. If you're in pain right now, if you're struggling, honestly, reach out to Matt or I. Our emails are on our sites.
Do.
We'll include all of this. I know plenty of resources I can recommend you to. I'm not a professional. Matt is, but I'm not a professional, but I can recommend you to people. Like, don't feel like you're alone, because that's the worst thing. And it's not weak or anything to reach out and get help. In fact, I believe it takes courage to reach out and admit that you're feeling scared, you're feeling weak. That vulnerability is what makes us human, and there's no shame in that. So just wanted to build on that there, Matt. So, okay, so you went through working at this suicide helpline, and you realized that this was something that really resonated with you, and that's what triggered you to go back to school?
Yeah, it did. It triggered me to go back to school, and the thing is, part of it going to therapy when you're becoming my master's is in clinical psych, and when you have to do a year of therapy because they want you to go through therapy as well.
Right.
So, and doing that, and also just in classes and through class, you're writing papers about the information and techniques, and you're applying it to yourself or other students and kind of practicing with each other. So you just, because I feel like there's two people that go to therapy school. Because I know some people are saying this to me, like, I know therapists that are fucking crazy balls. And that is true. I feel like in school there was either people, not that I'm the most legit person, but there were people like myself who knew what they wanted to do and they wanted to help. And then there was people who really needed therapy and probably still do.
Okay.
Thankfully, I was not that. But I did learn a lot about myself through getting my master's. And what I learned a lot is that, so kind of how I'm positioned, I'm a narrative therapist, which means we kind of look through the life as a story metaphor, and that there's these we use a lot of externalization. So yeah, you could say that you're dealing with, so like in your case, if we were talking about grief, we would often talk about grief as a character in Brian's story. And sometimes, like on Monday, sometimes the character of grief is really strong and really needs to write Brian's story for that day. And how does grief come in? And how does grief control you? And how does grief manipulate you? And this is in good or bad ways.
Right.
How does grief help you find peace? And it's just these ways of externalization. We do that with the depression. We do that with anxiety. And so for me, I realized that, for me, I call it doubt. It was really fear or whatever. And then I eventually ended up calling it the critic. And that's kind of what I use because I do life coaching and stuff now, talk with actors and artists a lot. And so, but for me, it was this critic that always told me that I was either going to, I wasn't going to be a good actor because I always just seemed really gay, or I wasn't going to be funny enough, or I didn't have the abs to look like the other actors. All these different reasons, this critic kept telling me that I couldn't be a performer. And for me, there became two characters. There was like the character of the critic and then the character of the muse, which is, the muse is what fell in love with acting at a young age. The muse is what helped see myself watching Oprah at 12 years old and seeing a gay man interviewed on her show, which changed my life because I thought I was going to have to literally be a drag queen and die of AIDS and go to hell. That's what I thought.
Oh my God.
It sounds really horribly morbid, but I thought that's what all gay men became, because I'm 37, so I was growing up in the 80s. In Oklahoma.
Very different stigmas back then.
Yeah, we didn't have Will and Grace until 1997. I was literally a freshman in college before I saw gay people on television.
Wow.
So it was just a whole different world. But anyway, so I went through to get my master's, and I was, once you get your master's, you start to get your hours and all that kind of stuff, and how it kind of transitioned back to acting. As a friend said, basically two things happened. I got on, I was just so broke at my day job, and I Googled on Craigslist, I think I literally put in, I need money. and from that,
bingo.
came a thing about a game show. And they were looking for people to be on a game show. So long story short, I applied and I got on this game show. And it was called Show Me the Money. The host was William Shatner at the time. It was on ABC. They canceled it. It went 7 episodes. It was really confusing. But it was and I won money on it, and so it was life-changing for me, but it was also life-changing that was the first time I was starting to, those are casting directors that are still casting game shows. Even though they're real people, they're still casting people,
Right.
And so that was when I had done one game show, and then I went through the process of that, and then the casting director said, you should do commercials. I bet you'd be really good at commercials. And she just said that to me, and I didn't think much about it at the time, because that was right before I was starting grad school. But that was in 2006. But I thought, okay. And so there was I was in grad school, and I was almost finishing up grad school. And you know how once something happens, it just comes up. And literally in a month's time, because I remember it was in the month of March, because my birthday's in March, 8 people in some way, form, or fashion told me, you have a really good look for commercial. You should be in commercials. And I was like, okay, I think I need to do this, try this commercial thing.
Right.
And so from that,
Matt, before we continue there, that's a great point for everyone listening. Don't ignore the signs. Whether you're religious or not, you believe in the universe, you believe in nothing, if you keep hearing it, let that voice come through, because like Matt said, we all deal with what I've heard called the imposter syndrome. I'm not good enough. Who am I to be successful? I'm just some guy. There's no way I could succeed. Who's going to listen to me? The list goes on. But when 8 different people in 8 different scenarios say, you know what, you would be great for commercials, listen. And then the next step, try it. Just reach out to someone. Just say, do you know anybody that would be interested in me as a commercial? Do you know anyone who's hiring people, who's casting? Because my dad has always said to me through my whole life, you'd be amazed how willing people are to help when they know it is what you want. So you're not asking for a handout. You're not asking for them to just give you something. You're saying, hey, do you know of any auditions? Anyone that's hiring? That is something that we're so quick to ignore because we let the negative voices and the insecurity inside us beat down any ambitions we have before they can even have a chance to try and take off. Give it a chance. Like right now, take a moment and think, is there something that everyone keeps telling you you should try? If you have no idea how to get started, Google it. That's how I've learned so much of what this business has become over the past year and a half. There's so much information out there. And again, you need any help, contact me, contact Matt.
Please, I'm happy to help.
Oh, we love to do this. So, okay, Matt, keep going. So you have like 8 different people tell you commercials, you should do this, and you're like, you know what? I should check this out.
And I said, no, I'm not. No, I'm kidding.
I said, no way.
No way. I said, fuck off, or mind your own goddamn business. But no, actually, I didn't plan this, but I actually did what you just said. For a couple of them, I asked him, I said, well, how do you get into that? Do you know anybody? And so through that, I actually met a guy who's a hosting teacher, which is how funny that, I always wanted to be a host as a little kid, but I was a singer and an actor. And literally by my own curiosity, it brought me back to hosting. And so I went to this hosting teacher and I took this like hosting workshop. And I really loved it. I loved it so much. And I loved being able to be myself and make people laugh, but communicate information. But he said, hey, I know this person in Los Angeles who's kind of like a commercial agent. Crap. Shit the bed. I'm blanking on the word. It's, whatever. She kind of is basically like a consultant.
Okay.
And so I went to her, and then really that's where I consulted with her, and I did everything she said. And then within like 3 months, I got a commercial agent. And that's kind of, now cut to, after 4.5 years, 5 years of doing it, almost 5 years, I was about $3,000 away last year from making more from commercials than at my day job, and my health insurance is paid for by I'm in the Screen Actors Guild, and I have a pension with them.
Wow! Congratulations, man! That's amazing.
It is. I'm still having to do the day job. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like high on the hog here, but it definitely is. It was great that I listened to that, and it also was great. Again, it's you're kind of like, well, poor guy, he got a master's in therapy for nothing. But then that has given me so much cred with wanting to start my podcast and helping other people. And I started a summer camp and doing a lot of that kind of stuff, the things I was interested in. So it definitely, it took me, till I was almost 30 years old. It really was, though, when I was that kind of, I think your late 20s is such an important time, and I feel like I was a late bloomer. I don't know if it's because I was gay, and I was we actually have a thing when people come out, they it's scientifically studied, it's called developmental lag. So like when somebody comes out, they become 13 again because you didn't get to do all that.
Wow.
And I think I had a little bit of that, but I think we all though still just, I honestly, if I had kids, I do want to have kids one day, but I honestly think that I wish we would do what they do in Europe almost, where you take a year or two off
100%.
before high school.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, it's such a... My nephew now, he's going to University of Oklahoma. He's thinking about doing pre-med, and he's smart and all that, but... it's how the hell do you know what you want to do with your life when you're 18?
Right.
Or even 25, you know? And it's this pressure we put on ourselves. I just think... I honestly see people said you don't need to go to college until you're 25 and you're just going to work and like labor and do stuff or what, I think people would find more success from school.
Matt, like when you're talking about how do people know what they want to do when they're 25, when they're this or that, one of my biggest misconceptions coming out of school was that the people that were really successful had known since a very young age that that's what they wanted to do, and they'd been working on it since they were like 10. And since I didn't know what I wanted to do and I'm still figuring it out, it was this idea like, oh, I'm never going to get there because they've just had it figured out way longer. The reality is so different, and all these people are still figuring it out. And one of the biggest things that came through realizing that was like, nobody has it all figured out. One of my favorite new quotes, I've been telling this to everybody because I heard Elizabeth Gilbert interviewed on the School of Greatness podcast, I believe it was. And she said, so often we're told follow our passion, and people freak the fuck out. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what my passion is. I'm wrong. Everyone else knows what they're doing and knows their direction, and I'm this outlier and this freak for not knowing and not understanding, which couldn't be further from the truth. But here's what she says. She says, passion is this daunting, scary thing, and people put so much pressure on themselves, and they're not sure, and they feel like they're broken because they don't know this one thing they want to spend their whole life on. What she says instead is follow your curiosity, because that will serve you so much better than trying to isolate one thing in your life that you can dedicate your life to. Some of the most successful people I know that I've met, that I've studied, they just continued to follow their curiosity, which opened doors and allowed them to understand what they loved, and then they pursued that more. So don't put that pressure on yourself of, I need to have it all figured out, even if you went to school to be a doctor. Like Matt went to school for clinical psychology, and it seemed like a lot of people would say, oh, it was a waste of time. It's not a waste of time because of all the benefits that you got from it and how you could live in your own life, Matt. But then, full circle, it comes back later. So never devalue the things you've learned, because they have a way of coming back into your life if you allow them to.
Amen, sugar. You preach that. And so I literally was talking about curiosity this morning. I was talking about, because that is what drives me. This is what I talked a lot about in grad school, especially the type of therapist I am. We really pride ourselves in, we are curious. We're not the expert in the client's life. We're not, when I do coachings, I'm not the life coach that says, well, this is what you need to do and do. I'm curious. I'm always curious and to see how they will develop tools, how they will develop resiliency. I'm always interested to see, because I'm always surprised. And I think that helps for question asking too. I try not to ask the perfect question. I just go with what's interesting. And so I do want to say something else you said earlier, Brian, is that if you're comparing yourself to anyone else, then that's your critic talking. That is not you. That is not your muse. That is whatever is guiding you, that fills you with joy. It cannot live with comparison, because comparison is it's like what you said about procrastination. Comparison is just another tool that I believe your critic, your doubt, your fear uses to enable you from actually going toward it. Because like you said, who knows what people are doing before. It's definitely, I did that a lot too. I still, do that a lot. I think we all be comparing there's nothing wrong with comparing, because you're not going to get rid of those thoughts, but it's just knowing of, okay, that's their story. That's not mine. Right. And I think with doing podcasts is you start this podcast and you think, well, I hope somebody's going to listen to this. And then you get, and you have those days too where you're like, okay, I really love doing this, but does anybody give two fucks about this show? And then you get that text or you get that email from a listener that says this and this and this, and you're like, that's all that I needed. And I'm so glad I didn't compare myself with the Mark Marons or the Aisha Tylers, or that have millions of listeners. Well, you might have a million listeners. I don't know your life. No. I don't yet. But, yeah, and so it really is just anytime I want to compare myself, I just say stop and take a breath. I'll think about this later. And usually by the time I think about it later, I've already proven the comparison wrong.
Right. And something that I noticed in my own experience, because it's natural, especially in this digital age. You see Instagram, you see Facebook. We're desensitized to massive numbers. I saw like a Justin Bieber video had like 4 billion views or something, and it's like,
oh, yeah.
You know, these numbers don't even faze us anymore. Where back in the day, a couple thousand people listening to something would be unheard of. And what I realized was when I got obsessed with the numbers and that every episode needed more downloads, otherwise I wasn't happy or satisfied. One, that was my ego, and two, I was losing sight of the reason that I started this in the first place.
Yeah.
When I started to think of every download, every like, every click as a person who had a chance, whether they like, you know, some people just like it, but had a chance to be impacted by my work, that I'm putting myself out there vulnerably and authentically and hoping, in the hopes that it'll reach someone. When I focus on that one person that could be impacted, that their life could be changed by something one of my guests said, that something that I learned, that I shared, that's where the real connection and joy comes. And exactly like you said, I was at Podcast Movement and I was getting overwhelmed by these big names and these big numbers, and I was like, shit, am I like, and I also learned how much I don't know about podcasting. I was like, man, I'm in way over my head. Do I have to learn all this? I get an email from a guy I've never met, and he reaches out, and I actually just spoke with him on the phone today because I wanted to get to know him and I want to connect with my audience more. I won't say his name, but he reached out and said, hey man, listen, you don't know me, but your show has been really inspiring for me. I love the work. And he put this out there, and I got emotional. I was like, oh my God, because I've had friends reach out, I've had family, but even your negative voices go, oh, they're just saying it because they're your friends. This is the first time that a stranger had reached out and connected with me, and it was like the most amazing feeling, because I was like, my words are reaching someone and people are listening. And like you said, when you get that affirmation, it pushes you through on those days where you don't feel like anyone's listening or you don't feel like anyone's connecting.
Yep, exactly.
Now,
just need one.
I'm very curious to learn more about your time in commercials. Could you tell us about maybe your favorite experience acting in a commercial?
Man, that is honestly like trying to ask what's your favorite blowjob. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, dude! I literally keep having to lean back from the mic because I'm like, all they're gonna hear is me laughing. But I thought you were gonna say ice cream. I was like, oh yeah, that's a tough.
Potato.
Okay. All right. How about this? What's your favorite recent commercial? The first one that comes to mind, and can you tell us about the experience?
Yeah, I know. I think actually I will probably, and I think a lot of actors can say this, as long as it was a good experience. But my favorite probably was my first commercial. Okay. And it's probably my least known commercial. Nobody even knows about.
It's similar to your first blowjob. That's probably.
You know what? It was pretty. Well, no, you always remember that. But anyways, so sorry. See, that's the gay DD talking. I'm thinking of peanuts. And
oh man.
But anyway, so the first commercial was definitely it was for LasVegas.com, and it was, again, a lot of people not know this, but it was directed by this guy an actor named Bob Balaban, who you might know his face. He's an improv actor, and he's in all the Christopher Guest movies. So he plays, and now by Christopher Guest movies, I mean like Waiting for Guffman, Spinal Tap, Best in Show. So all those movies that are improvised. Like in the Waiting for Guffman, he plays, I think, the band director. But pardon me. So I loved it because it was a total improv commercial. And as an improviser and as somebody who's taken improv, here I have this guy as a director, and I'm meeting him. I've seen him in millions of films, or not millions, but in many films. He's made me laugh my ass off. and he's directing me and saying, "You're great. I think you're awesome." And he said, "So this is what we want to happen in the scene. So you guys, this is what needs to happen. Just make me laugh. Back each other up." And that was it. I remember him saying that, and I thought, holy shit, I get paid for this.
Wow.
So it was one of those moments of, I get paid for this. And it was just so, I still think that every set that I'm on, I don't know. It's just it is like children. You love them for different reasons. Because I love that. Obviously, I was in the commercial that got me into the union I did a commercial for Target with Justin Timberlake,
wow.
And for his album release party, he was surprising fans. He surprised us. This was about 2 or 3 years ago. He surprised us. We were singing his song, and then he walks up behind us while we're singing.
Wow.
It's all on my website, on my commercial world. But that was amazing too, in that I'd already sang with Shania Twain, and now I get to sing with. Sorry, I don't know if you hear. Somebody called me on my computer.
No, we're good.
Okay, good. I can hear it. So I sang with Shania Twain, and now I'm getting to sing on stage with Justin Timberlake. And then he just sat and talked to us while they were setting up shots for 3 hours, and was the nicest guy.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I felt like I was at a barbecue. Should have had a red Solo cup in my hand. He was just so kind, so funny, and so interested, not talking about himself, but also interested in talking to us and wanting to know what we do. He loved that I was a therapist and all that kind of stuff. And that's what got me in the union. So that was cool. And then my Hotels.com commercial, that was probably my biggest commercial. And that was cool because that put me in another. Now when I go to other auditions, I see when I go to other auditions, I see myself in I see other people around me that are in commercials that I see as well, so it's pretty awesome. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was, and that, talk about body issues, that was a commercial where I was in my underwear. So literally I play a guy who gets locked out of his room in his underwear, and so I was definitely a little self-conscious.
Oh, dude, I think even people who work out all the time and are bodybuilders, they would be like, oh wait, this is going to be shown on national television. Okay, hang on, I need to do an extra 20 crunches, or can we film from this angle maybe? But that's amazing. That's it, and it's incredible to hear how the story developed, but also how you, following your own curiosity, led you on this road, and you said, you know what, let me try. And just having the courage to say, let me meet with this hosting director, let me meet with this casting director, let me take these steps, has taken you on this incredible journey. And now you're not just helping people to laugh and smile with your comedy and with your acting, but you're also being able to connect with people as a therapist and as a coach. So you're covering so many different areas. Now, since we've got about 6 minutes left, I want to hit a couple.
Holy shit, that was quick.
Dude, I'm telling you, it's
so awesome.
It's so
I love talking to you.
Wait, dude, we can always do another one. That's the great thing about having a show. So
it's great. We need to do a Ginger Road show. Just us and beer and advice. Let's do it.
GRS. So GRS. Yes. It says Matt and Brian with GRS. So
that's funny.
See, and we've got the gay and the straight perspective. We can bring a diverse ginger perspective to all of life's issues.
I love it.
So we'll get on that. But all right, so I want to dig into some deep stuff here for the last couple questions. And I actually realized you're my first gay guest. So congratulations. I'll send the medal. That's
I'll send it to Judy Garland. I don't know.
And I was realizing that what you were talking about the identity crisis that gay and lesbian individuals or anyone else in the LGBT community faces are very different than things that I faced growing up. I think we all face these identity crises at different times, but like you said, many people who are in this group or in these different groups face these things at a much earlier age or are confronted with it. So I'd like to know, what would your advice be to someone in the LGBT community on if they're feeling lost, if they're feeling scared, and they don't really feel like they have a sense of who they are? What advice would you give them to be able to step into themselves and really step into their full and true self?
I think there's two parts to that. I think the first part is I want to, tell them everything you think is wrong and fucked up about yourself is actually the most beautiful part of you. And if you don't believe that, and if you don't have hope for yourself, I often say to my clients, and I'm saying this now to any listeners that relate to this, just borrow my hope. Know that Matt Marr is out here in California, and I have hope for you, and you can use my hope for as long as you like. And in fact, you can keep it because I have that much hope for you as a person to succeed in this world. And when you don't need that hope anymore, just give it to someone else. But I know that this life has something beautiful planned for you, and I believe that. I believe that you're amazing and awesome for who you are. So that's one thing I would say. And then another thing I would say is find community. Because the internet is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And so whether it is, I know if you're younger, there's you can go to Trevor. So I volunteered for it. It's called the Trevor Helpline, and they have a website called trevorspace.org, and that's spelled TREV as in Victor, ORSPACE.org, trevorspace.org, and it's kind of like a Facebook, or for any of you remember MySpace, it's basically an online community just for LGBTQ youth to talk and just find people that are going through what they've gone through. Because that's what my camp is. I started a summer camp that is a leadership camp for LGBT youth. It's called Camp Brave Trails, and that's bravetrails.org if you want to learn about that. It's a nonprofit, and that was huge. And just you see people that come to our camp that never hardly speak, or that they're really shy and introverted, and by the end of a week feel empowered. They want to talk, they're laughing, and then they go and do things in their community throughout the year and come back for the summer even stronger. So that's there's definitely websites that for if you're looking, put in like gay youth helpline, or you can call the Trevor Project. Because I know some people can't go to a gay and lesbian center because they're maybe 12 or 13 years old and they live in, Utah or something, like in the country, or in a place that's not necessarily their parents might not be the most supportive of that. But find community and people that know that you will support you, that will support you.
That is beautiful, man. And one thing I want to emphasize there to all of the listeners is finding community is one of the best ways to bring not only your unique gift to the world, but to recognize how much there is out there for you.
Yep.
Because whether it's something about your sexual identity, and whether you're LGBT, whether it's something about being a business person or an athlete or this or that, if you constantly feel out of place, it's up to you to introduce yourself to new communities. And they're out there, guys. The internet, there's lots of bad things. There's lots of nonsense and time wasters. There's so many gifts, though, in our ability to connect and find communities. So if you don't feel like perfect example, I wanted to learn salsa dancing. I moved to North Carolina, and I was like, I don't know if I'll find it here. I really love to dance, but I don't know. And then, of course, there's, what'll people think of me if I dance? And I'm like, who cares? I love dancing. It doesn't matter. Then I put it off. I procrastinated for months. And then finally, I looked on meetup.com, found a group, and they become some of my best friends in North Carolina.
I love that.
So, it's so much fun. It's such a supportive group. And all of a sudden, rather than having this lingering thing I wish I was doing in my mind of, some people go their whole lives just thinking about 2 or 3 things they'd love to try. Get out and try it. If there's a meetup group, you can go out and connect with them. If there's a group online, you can start connecting with people that share your interests and will help you to grow and develop into who you're meant to be. You're already there inside. It's just about you letting go of the mask and letting go of the covers to step into your greatness. So,
exactly,
Matt, we have 2 questions left, my friend, and I don't want to wrap it up. But
I know I don't want to. And I have to say one thing. I just thought of this when you're talking.
Course.
I'll be real quick. Because I once listening to Oprah, because I love that bitch. I love Oprah. Love her. And but Oprah once was talking about when you feel overwhelmed and you don't know how to follow your dream, you don't know how. She said she was having one of those moments, and she just asked herself, "What's the next best step I can take?" That's it. What's the next? So somebody's looking for salsa. For somebody looking for, you don't think about what you need to do 20 steps down the road. Just think, okay, what's the next best thing I need to do? Sometimes that's, hey, I need to like go for a walk and just calm down.
Yep.
That's cool. Make that the next step. It could be, I just need to like go online and look at salsa dancing for like 10 minutes and then go away from my computer. Whatever. Next best step. Okay, go ahead with your question. I just wanted to say that because I think it's important.
Oh, I'm so glad you paused me for that, because you apply that to relationships, you apply that to career moves. That is fantastic advice, and often it's sometimes some of the simplest advice in terms of just a couple words that can really change your life. So next time you're in a fight and you're like, what's the next best step? Maybe it's walk away for a couple minutes, let the emotions cool off, and then come back and talk about it when it's not the explosion and you regret it and have to come back and deal with that later. So fantastic, dude. I think Oprah's learning some stuff from you. I think she's picking up some of your lessons, man. That sounds like it.
Well,
So I love that pitch. I hope Oprah gets to hear this one day and knows how much you love her. All right, man. So we have 2 questions to wrap up, and
Sure.
This is something that I love these questions. The first question you'll get has been a part of the show ever since my dad introduced me to it. He said, I think this would be a great addition. The second one...
First of all, your dad. Can I meet your dad? Amazing. Has he been on your show? I haven't looked. Has he? I'll look and see.
He hasn't yet, but we were talking about doing an episode of Podcast Movement. So this is, you know what, this is the kick in the ass we need to do that, because we've had multiple ideas, and I've been like, Dad, you've got to come on. I quote him all the time. So, yeah. That's coming up. So, all right, first question is, this show is really geared towards young adults, people that are just coming out into, and I hate the phrase the real world, but that, people know what I'm saying. So coming out into
academia is not the real world.
Right.
It's not. It's not.
And I'm like, everything is the real world. Like, you're living life constantly. There is no pause button. This is all real. So live it to the best possible level you can. But as young adults, we often come out of school, or even if we didn't go to school, we come out into the working world thinking that we have nothing to offer. And whether you call them millennials, young professionals, there are so many things that we have to offer, even being inexperienced or new to the working world. So what are some of the biggest benefits that you think young adults bring to the working world, or to the world in general, not just the working world?
Optimism. I think that's something I prided myself, is that I think a lot of people think I'm younger than I am, and I think a lot of that is because I'm a very optimistic person, and we relate that a lot to youth. And I think sometimes older people want to say it's naivete, but I don't see it as that. I think young people now are very, especially now because they're so plugged. Like, I think of my nephew who's 18. He's very intelligent. He's very well informed, and I also feel like younger people are being more empathetic. And I really believe that, like, I think more than intelligence, whether more than studying, I truly believe that building your empathy is the way to really. This sounds so freaking like a Coke commercial, but it really is the best way to heal the world. I really do think that empathy is really the gateway into connections, the gateway into understanding. I mean, just think about, even in our political system in our country, if people just thought about the other person with a little empathy of where they're coming from instead of being right or wrong, and that's on both sides. So yeah, for me, it's a lot of, I think there's just empathy, optimism, and also I think of, but I also think there is a little bit of hopefully confidence is great, but also you can learn from older and wiser people. I just had a friend that I've never been, but she just went to Japan, and she talked about the difference in the way. She said, you don't realize that older people are more forgotten in this country until you go to Japan and you see how much more their wisdom is revered there,
right?
Because of their life experience. So that's cool. I think I would like to go to Japan and see that.
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing, is like Gary Vaynerchuk, one of the most famous entrepreneurs in the world right now. I mean, everybody knows his name who's in the entrepreneur space. he talks about when he was young, he went and learned from old people, and that's part of the reason he's able to be where he is today.
Oh yeah.
And one of the things that you said about, you know, people looking at optimism as naivety, like, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly, but being naive.
It's fine, sugar. You're pretty. It doesn't matter.
Dude, I hope the listeners aren't getting blown out by my laughs, because I've been cracking up this whole episode. But the whole, oh, you're optimistic, so you're naive, and often what you'll hear is some older people, I hate to generalize because that's never true, but some older people will say, you don't know how the world works yet. What I believe that is a person being unwilling to accept a new reality. So rather than try to make themselves happy or find joy or possibility, they've decided to accept a negative limiting reality, and rather than open up their mind to the possibility that something that they've always wanted to achieve could be within their grasp, now they'd rather tell other people it's not and hide behind the word impossible, because that makes them feel like, one, they know how the world works, and two, if they stop somebody else from doing it, that doesn't challenge their belief. So for anybody out there who has somebody doing that for you and saying, you know what, that's not possible, don't waste your time, if it's something, they're wrong. And
yeah.
And so one of my favorite quotes from Sean Stevenson: never believe a prediction that doesn't empower you. No one knows.
You said that on your last show, and I actually paused the show and said it aloud 3 times.
Awesome.
And I texted it to my friend.
Fantastic. Yeah, Sean is he's a good friend of mine now. He's one of my favorite people. But that quote, never believe a prediction that doesn't empower you, because there are plenty of people, you know, the Wright brothers, you're never going to fly. People telling Steve Jobs he's never going to make this product. Like, there's a lot of naysayers out there, but you focus on the few positive voices in your life, and the most important one is the one inside. Let that guide you. Let your courage and your intuition guide you, and your life will change faster than it ever has. I promise you, because when I've embraced that voice, life becomes this beautiful, amazing experience. When I ignore that voice, all of a sudden things feel dark and I feel disconnected. So allow yourself to connect and light things up. So fantastic, Matt. Now, last question, and this one has been around since the beginning of the show. And what this is because this is called Overcoming Graduation, what I like to do is ask guests, if you could go back and talk to yourself on the verge of graduation, knowing everything you know now, if you could talk with your younger self, what would be the advice you would give to younger Matt?
It's hard not to get emotional when you ask that question, actually, because I've thought about it so much, and especially, I mean, being like gay and stuff. Boy, the boys I would have chased in high school, if I could have told them, I'd been like, you get in football and go in that shower and you look. I didn't do any of that. Instead,
and you look.
you look at those boys in towels. But anyway, but I think, when I talk about college, it sounds so cliche, but I just would want to say to myself, you are enough exactly where you are right now in life. Mm-hmm. You are enough to chase your dreams exactly where you are. You are enough to be successful exactly where you are right now. You are enough to be loved exactly where you are right now.
Fantastic, man. And it's something, like you said, it may sound cliche, but I want everyone to pay attention, because things that sound cliche, that often only happens because we hear it frequently. That doesn't mean it's not true or that it doesn't hold great wisdom. The whole be the change you want to see in the world, everyone's heard that 1,000 times. But it's so powerful. But it's so powerful when you actually implement it in your life. When you take control of your happiness and start to be the change you wish you could see, your world will change, and all of the negative stuff that you see on the media, that'll still be there. You'll still acknowledge it, but you'll recognize that there is so much beauty in life. So, Matt, this has been fantastic, dude. This has been so much fun.
Thanks, Brian. This is it's so great. I'm 100%. I'm doing it now on the air, so you have to say yes. I so want you on my show, because I think we'll answer some advice questions, and I think there's a lot of listeners that would relate to you.
100%. Let's schedule it as soon as we're done. But before I let you go, I know people are going to want to come and learn more about you and the amazing work you're doing. So can you please share the best ways that listeners can come learn about you and connect with you?
Sugar, you know I had a good time when I totally forgot to really promote myself. I forgot about all of that. I was so engaged with you. I love it. So yeah, there's really two places you can go to. My show, instead of Dear Abby, it's Dear Maddie. So you can go to DearMaddieShow.com, and that's DearMattie show.com, DearMaddieShow.com. You can also ask advice questions there. They can be anonymous. I'm always looking for more questions to answer on the show. And then you could maybe even if you say that you heard this thing and you want put on the show, hey, I'd want you and Brian to answer this question, and we'll answer it on the show. And but also too, any social media is the Matt Marr. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I'm trying to do Snapchat. I don't really understand it. But yeah, it's the Matt Marr, MattMarr with a the in front of it. I'm launching. I'm launching YouTube videos of Dear Maddie, of me answering questions with other guests and things like that. And so that's going to go up, and you can find that information on my website. But so that'll be up the next week. Hopefully that'll all get launched.
Fantastic. So for all the listeners, that's all going to be linked in the show notes. We'll make sure all of the links that were just mentioned are there for you for easy access. So Matt, I'm going to ask you to hang on for 1 second. Listeners, that is all for today. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope we see you again on Overcoming Graduation real soon.
Guys, that one was so much fun for me to record. I think you all heard me laughing your ears off the entire show because Matt was not only hilarious, but offered so much value and so many valuable lessons. So definitely go check out DearMattieshow.com and hit up Matt on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. All of that's linked in the show notes because he would love to hear from you, and so would I. So let him know you heard about him on our show, and that would be a huge compliment to me if you would be willing to do that. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Overcoming Graduation, the show where I work to teach you everything I wished I'd known to help you graduate to the next level, you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher. You can check out overcominggraduation.com. And if you'd like to learn more about the OCG community, you can check out Overcoming Graduation on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and that's about it. Yeah, most of the social media places. So thank you guys so much for listening today. I love you guys. This is always fun, and I am so honored that I get to not only do this, but to share these wonderful people with you. So thanks for listening to today's interview with Matt Marr, and I hope you guys are doing great, and I'll be talking to you again real soon.